Hello everyone. We're gonna go live very soon. So if you are watching, just stay tuned. We just want to make sure people are able to listen in and can join the webinar at the moment. So we'll go through the AADSAS and TMDSAS webinar in a bit. I just want to send one email to people um, who are currently watching the webinar. I think it's and to send them the link because in my last email I didn't send the link. So let me just do that quickly, and then we'll begin in 1 or 2 minutes as soon as people start joining. And even if people don't join, this is a recorded video, so people can listen in whenever they want. And I will I'll send you guys the video link once we are done, and it's gonna be available on our website. Alrighty. Alrighty. I just sent an email to folks who to join the webinar. I think a few folks will be able to join, and most of them won't be able to, and they're gonna be joining. They're gonna be watching it later on the internet. So with that said, let's get started. I think it's a great day, and it's a great webinar to host because AADSAS application is coming up on the soft launch in a few days, and TMDSAS has already opened. So I think this webinar is really relevant for a lot of students, and a lot of students are gonna be trying to cram in the last few days to finish their personal statement or any other essays that they have to write and figure out before their application goes in by June 4th, which is the first day AADSAS opens up their door to submit application. So so that said, let's jump right in. I'm gonna start the presentation right now. I think it's a good time, 5 minutes in. First of all, thank you so much for joining. This is a great this is going to be a great webinar, especially for people who are applying for this cycle, and especially applying for Texas schools. We cover a lot of TMDSAS stuff today that we haven't covered before. So at the end, we will also do our pitch about our services that you can check out at the end of the day. All right, let's jump right in. So who are we? Like, what is Dental School Coach? Dental School Coach is a company that I founded after helping a lot of pre-dentals getting into their dream dental schools, and I realized that to scale the way I can help people, I need to I need to put something on the internet. So I started doing webinar, doing video series that just like this to help pre-dental students to get into dental schools. Over the last 5 years, I have helped over 900 students to get into different schools, and you can see the schools that they got accepted to. But for myself, I've got, I'm a Penn grad. I got accepted to UPenn, UCSF, and a few other schools about 7 to 8 years ago. So I am pretty well versed with the application process. I also know a lot about the applicants who are in different phases of the application process. I also have a huge success rate, so 96%. So every 100 students that apply, 96% of our students get accepted, and almost like 4% get waitlisted or rejected, which is quite rare. So a lot of my students are going to like top places like Harvard, Penn, UCSF, and these are some of the schools. And it's not the whole list, but it's a subset of list of schools that my students have gotten accepted to. And we're really proud of these people that are going to this great institutions. So last few years we have also expanded our team. As I mentioned, this year we have Ali and Hadi who are from NYU joining us, as well as Navi and Pooja. Navi is a rising third year at ESDO, and Pooja is a rising second year at Tufts. So this is our team. They're great people. They're great admissions consultants. Many of them have gone through me, and many of them have really exceptional background in writing and also providing coaching services. So that says, what are we discussing today? What's on the agenda? What are we talking about in the application that you don't already know? And we want to make it as unique as possible, not like just give you dry overview of the AADSAS or TMDSAS, but also tell you like what are some of the implications of the application. Like, what do you really need to know to make sure you are well prepared and you're well prepared for the application season and application process. So that's it. We're going to discuss GPA and DAT, especially the trends of it, and then we're going to discuss the activity summary. I think a lot of people get confused as to what to do and how to write it. We're going to discuss coursework, specifically for TMDSAS. I think that's more reasonable to discuss because AADSAS have different criteria for GPA. Different criteria for coursework. So we're also going to discuss how to get letter of recommendations from whom. We will discuss a few essays about TMDSAS. Because of our time limitation, I don't think we have a lot of time to discuss them, but I think we'll cover the basics so that you know how to write them, and other small little things that matter in the application, so you're not screwed. So that's it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I mean this literally, because DAT and GPA are probably the most important factors in your application, and you want to be careful about these two things. First things first, let's look at some trends. Let's see what happened to what are the GPA and DAT trends among the enrollees of all the 74 or 75 dental schools that are out there. So in the years between 2000 and 2018, we have seen that average DAT scores among applicants and among enrollees have gone up. So the reason I'm mentioning is that enrollees is more important because these are the people that are getting accepted. These are the people that are enrolling into dental schools. Applicants are not necessarily going to get accepted. About, I think, close to 50% get rejected or something like that. So it's not a high number, but at the same time, it's also you want to be careful that the average DAT score is getting close to 20.4, 20.5 in PAT and things like that. So those are really high scores. Back in the day when I was applying in 2013 or 2012, the average scores were close to like 19.3, 19.4. So there is a rising trend on getting higher scores, and this could be because either the exams have changed in a drastic way, or people know how to take the exam so well that they're gaming the exam. So, but regardless, you can see that if you're not getting a 20 or 21, your chances actually decline by a significant percentage. So the second thing I want to show you is the grade point averages for the enrollees between the same, 2000 to 2018, so about 18 years gap. And you can see that by 2010 they have kind of stabilized, and you can see that the GPA of the total GPA is about 3.55, 3.56, and pretty stabilized, not like the DATS score. And the science GPA is close to 3.5, 3.47, 3.45, those very close to 3.5. So what that tells me is that if you have a 3.5 or above, you have a 50% shot at getting accepted. So that, if you have below 3.5 or like 3.45, I think your chances reduce significantly, and we'll discuss that further. I think this is really important for people to see when they're applying, because although I want people to be optimistic about their application process, there's a science behind the application process, and statistics really talk a lot about who is getting accepted to the different places. So this slide is very depressing. I don't want to show it to people, but the reason I'm showing it is because if your GPA is below 3.0, there is a, especially science GPA, if your GPA is below 3.0, there is probably a 9% chance that you'll get accepted, so really low chance. So in that cases, you have to, bump up your GPA. And then the total GPA, if it's below 3.0, you have probably 4% chance of getting accepted. That's really low. So make sure that you have at least a 3.0. If you do not have a 3.0, I think it's not a good idea to apply. If you do have a 3.0 and it's somewhere between 3.0 and 3.25, your chances aren't that better, right? So if let's say you are between about 15% of the students that are enrolling into the schools have between 3.0 and 3.24. So it's not a bad percentage, but it's not the biggest percentage either. So a lot of the people are going to be between 3.5 and above. So that's what is expected. As you can see, that your chances decrease significantly once you go below 3.5 or 3.25 specifically. So I would say really make sure if you have a 3.0 or 3.1 GPA, make sure that your DAT score is quite stellar, and that's what makes you unique in the application pool. And the people that are getting accepted, with 3.0 and stuff, their DAT score has to be really good. Otherwise, it's really difficult for admissions committee to see you as a credible applicant. Let's look at TMDSAS, and the story is even harder for TMDSAS because the average GPA is 3.68, science GPA is 3.59, and min DAT is about close to 21. So 87% of the matriculant have at least 3.5 or above. So what we saw in the other AADSAS application where we have more schools, we saw that about close to 50% of the applicants have 3.5 or above. But in the case of TMDSAS, about 87% applicants have more than 3.5 or above. So it's really difficult if you're coming from Texas and if you're a Texas resident and you're applying to Texas schools. TMDSAS, by the way, is the Texas application. So if you're a Texas resident, if you're interested in attending Texas schools, make sure you have at least a 3.5 or above, because otherwise your chances of getting into a Texas school significantly reduces. Now, why am I showing you these graphs? I think the reason I'm showing you these graphs are not to make you depressed, not to make you sad about your GPA or your DAT score. But I think the key things that I want you to take away from this is that, hey, stats have a influential role in admissions process, and don't discount that. But at the same time, these are not the only things that outcomes care about. So you need to strengthen other aspects of your application, and that's where we're going to help you. So as soon as you can, find out how to do your AADSAS GPA. By going to the link below. It tells you how to convert your AADSAS. You can also do it when the application opens up on May 14th. So the reason I'm showing you the GPA trend and graph is that, hey, although the GPA has stayed kind of stabilized for AADSAS, DAT score has gone up. On the other hand, for TMDSAS, excuse me, it's really difficult if you have a lower than 3.5 to get accepted in the 3 schools that are part of the TMDSAS dental schools. So let's look at some important dates. So AADSAS, which is the regular application for pre-dental students to apply to dental schools in the US. The soft launch, which is new for the last 2 years, is going to be on May 14th. So essentially what they're doing is giving you access to different secondary applications and different other portion of the application, so you can start working on them along with personal statement. And then the application opens up June 4th. So the first round of academic update period is going to be between August 14th to September 30th. So I think that's when most people are going to get their first round interview invites, and then second round interview invites come out starting December. So as you know, there's a pre-December interview as well as pre-December acceptances and post-December interview and acceptances. So the earlier you apply, the better. So my recommendation is that apply within the first week of June 4th to make sure you have a solid chance. The other thing is, don't wait until the deadline. I think the deadlines are artificial. They do not mean anything for AADSAS because it's a rolling application. So make sure you are you're doing a good job, applying quickly. So let's look at the TMDSAS timeline. I think this is also pretty important because TMDSAS also opened up pretty early. It already opened up and it's going on for a week. And you wanna be in the early decision process for TMDSAS and not in the later game. Now I know that a lot of the Texas schools actually go on for giving decisions until the very end, but if you have a low GPA, it's gonna be really tough to get into a Texas schools. So what resources do you have that will help you to prepare for the application cycle and seasons? So there are 2 main resources I recommend. If you're applying to AADSAS schools, do get that book, the ADA Official Guide to Dental Schools. There is a new version available for 2019 and 20. I think that's gonna be super helpful to give you some summary of stats, summary of courses that schools are requiring, and give you some overview of the schools. On the other hand, TMDSAS, I don't think it gives you the school's details, but it tells you how to fill out the application and what to do for specific situations. I think there's a help center for AADSAS that does the same thing as TMDSAS. So it's not a PDF, but it's almost like a link that you click and then you can go to different links that you need. So let's jump right in and look at first activities description. I think a lot of people have struggles writing the activities description. Number 1, because they don't know what to write, and number 2 is they don't know how to write it articulately. So let's discuss this further. Some lowball things. License and achievements, they're pretty straightforward. If there's a description that is needed, keep it under 300 characters. Don't write a lot about the awards and achievements. Just write why they're given and to whom they're given. Don't do any other description aside from this. So for licenses, the only thing that matters is what license it is and what are you doing with the license. For example, if it's a RN license or dental assisting license, those are important. But if it's a license outside of health profession, I would not put it in. So in terms of AADSAS, AADSAS have 6 different types of experience that you can put down. So it's really important that you kind of understand where you fall in. So academic enrichment is basically summer programs that you go to improve your GPA or to improve your science understanding. Dental experiences you do dental experiences would be like shadowing and dental assisting, but it's just dental related experiences. So if you're going through a dental assisting job, I think you put it here. Employment, it's only paid employment outside of healthcare. So if you're working at H&M or a retail store or a grocery store, that's what you put down. Extracurricular is pretty straightforward. I don't have to explain it. It's all your club activities and other type of extracurricular activities that you're participating in the school. Research, it's pretty straightforward as well. Working at a lab, if you're getting paid for the research, that's also go here. It doesn't go into the employment section. For volunteering, it's really straightforward, but the key thing is that it's not healthcare volunteering. It's a non-healthcare related activities. So for example, if you're a pre-med and you worked at a hospital for 2 years before jumping into becoming a pre-dental, it's really tricky because there is no space for putting that in, honestly, because it's not a dental experience, it's not a volunteering experience. So it could be, you could put it under extracurricular experiences, and that's probably the best place to put it out, because it's not a non-healthcare related volunteering activity, so you can really put it down in under volunteering. So that said, the next thing that you need to understand is that you have to prioritize 6 of them. So there, like the real crucial detail is that admissions committee is not going to look at everything, because they don't have time and they don't have the energy to look at every single activities you do. I know some people that they're going to put down 25 different activities, so it's really hard for admissions committee to judge who you really are as an individual if you're putting down 25 activities that are somewhat like scattered and meaningless. So they want you to prioritize 6 different activities, especially for AADSAS, 6 activities that are meaningful, that are really most important and impactful for you, and then for all of them, you have 600 characters, which is not a lot of space, but in the paragraph that you're seeing italicized, it's basically a description that one of my star students wrote. So take a look at this. Take like 30 seconds to read this. It's not impressive in a sense that I'm not saying this is impressive. What I'm saying is that this is what works. When you're writing the summary or the description of an activity, make sure you talk about your accomplishments in the work. Don't talk about what you did, because I think if you talk about what you did, like for example, I transported patients from one place to another, doesn't have any consequence. Anyone can do that. So if you talk about, I really enjoy talking to patients on the way to different divisions at the hospital, as well as created meaningful connections, and sometimes learned about their pains and became more empathic in the process. That's more appropriate, because it's showing what you learn, what you're going. You have a better understanding of the patient flow. You have a better understanding of how to deal with patients. So I think that's going to be helpful in the future when you become a dentist. So put down any learning, any accomplishment that you have when with regards to how you can be a good dentist. Don't put anything down if it's not helping you in the process. But if it's going to help you, put it down as a learning point. Again, it's very much 600 characters, so you don't have too much space to write it. So be very crisp, and we help people becoming more crisp in their activities description design. So TMDSAS have more type of activities. So they have academic recognition. So basically, it's awards that are academically oriented. Then non-academic recognition. Leadership. I think leadership is also important. It could be like your presidents or a role and things like that. I think for each of them, you can just like write down just what you did and whatnot. I don't think there is a space for putting down extra details. TMDSAS does require you to identify top meaningful activities. So you have you can put up to 3 meaningful activities in that section, and for that you have 500 character limits. So it's almost like AADSAS, but you have only 3 activities that you can prioritize. Now for TMDSAS, the other activities that you're going to put down, they're just going to be a summary, a list. So they're not huge. And the new meaningful section is very basically mimicking what AADSAS has done in the last 2 years. So TMDSAS has just gone in that route, but you have very limited space. You have 3 activities that you can talk about, and you have 500 characters each. So it's lower or less space than AADSAS. So be very vigilant and be very structured in how you write the activities description. And we can help you if you're not if you're not a good writer, or if you feel like you don't know what to write. We can help you plan for what to write in these activities. So the next section, we're going to discuss the letter of recommendations and how many to get, who to get from, and whatnot. So let's talk about them together. So the top part is from AADSAS, and the second part is from TMDSAS. So just so that you know, this part is AADSAS and this part is TMDSAS, the orange part. So for AADSAS, you can submit up to 4 evaluations, right? So it could be 4 individual letters or 1 committee letters and 1 individual letters. So committee letters, basically your pre-health organization in your school, or pre-health like advising committee, they interview you and then put in the letters you submit to them, and they can submit it to AADSAS. But you can also submit 4 letters individually. What a lot of people do is that they use Interfolio, and Interfolio allows the professors to submit the letters on their own without going through the committee letter. So I think there is a benefit to getting a committee letter, because the committee has oversight on your individual letters, as well as the letters that you're going to be submitting aside from them. But what happened when I was applying is that my committee chair actually interviewed me and wrote down everything that she could for my application, and then she had me do a mock interview with someone who is also a senior level academics, and basically get multiple data points, and she added all the data points in the committee letter. So that was great. So I'm grateful that Penn does it in their capacity. For TMDSAS, it's 3 letters, 3 letters from individuals or from health committee. If you can just get 1 packet, but 1 must come from a dentist. So AADSAS do not require a dentist recommendation letter, but TMDSAS do, or TMDSAS does. So be very vigilant. Like when you're applying to Texas schools, make sure you have a letter from a doctor. Some schools require a letter from a doctor. It's highly recommended that you put one, but it's not needed. I personally didn't have a letter of recommendation from a doctor, and I still got accepted. So it's your choice to see which one you should put in. So from letter of recommendation perspective, who should you get it from? You should get it from the people that that you know the most and that knows you the most. Don't get it from someone who in your class, a professor who gave you an A, because sometimes the professor don't even know you if it's a big class, and don't just they have TAs who are grading, and they're probably not creating a meaningful relationship with you. And then you should definitely look for professors that have a good relationship with you. If you don't have a good relationship with the professor, start building that early. I think junior year was the time when I started building the relationships with the professor. When do you ask? So you ask during April of your junior year, or April of the year of your application, because it's the time when the professors are getting a lot of inflow of applicants for reviewing their or giving them a lot of recommendation. A lot of the time what happens is that you can actually ask them in February and cut all the other applicants that are in the line for getting a recommendation letter from these professors. So you can just ask them hey professor, give me a recommendation for AADSAS or for whatever you're applying for, but do it early so that he or she knows. One of the important things is that these professors are super busy, or if you're getting a letter from dentists, they're super busy. So one thing that is really important is to get a letter from make sure that you get the letter actually. Make sure that they write the letter, and make sure that they actually get the letter. So you have to be on top of your game to make sure that they're writing the letter, they're getting the letter on time to the board, and they're not procrastinating on that, because it's really important for you, and sometimes it's not as prioritized for them because they don't know you as well. You probably took a class with them, but that's about it, right? So they teach hundreds of students a year, so make sure that if they are writing your letter, they have enough time, enough opportunity to give you some directions. So let's look at course requirement. I think course requirement is really important when you apply for AADSAS and also Texas schools. I'm going to cover more on Texas schools, because the AADSAS schools, they have, each school, there's about I think 60 to 70 schools. Each of them have their own requirements and own priorities and own recommendations of classes they want you to take. So when we do school selection with our students, we help them figure out which schools that they're going to pick and what are the requirements that they have already taken. So I think those are going to be really helpful to help them with the school selection process. So let's look at the course requirements for AADSAS. If you get the book, you'll have all the details about the courses required by each individual schools, and I highly recommend that if you're an applicant, you should get this book, because it teaches it teaches you a lot about like what the schools are looking for, what are their mission statements and things like that, which I think it's kind of not that important at the moment, but I think the more important things are like the GPA average, the DAT average of the schools, and also the courses that they're requiring you to take. All right. So that said, let's look at TMDSAS more in details. I think it's really different. They have some requirements, and look, this is going to be available to you. This webinar is going to be available to you. So I don't want to read out from the slides, but essentially they're requiring that you take at least 90 credits before you apply, at least get a C or above before you apply in any of the classes. Your chances of getting accepted to a Texas school significantly reduces if you get like let's say C minus or a D. So you need to be very vigilant about what schools you're applying to. Now, courses, frequently asked questions. So this is also available on this website that is mentioned below. So you can go there and like look at some of the frequently asked questions. But interestingly, they require taking a stats class. Many of the AADSAS schools are not going to require you to take a stats course. So take it if you haven't done it already. So that's one thing that I thought was interesting. In the AADSAS, I also want to point out some of the things that, sorry, this is not the AADSAS. In the Texas application, some of the things that are quite new. So this is a new thing that came about in Texas schools, the socioeconomic question. So they're gonna get to know you better through the application. They're gonna see if you're a first generation student attending a dental school or first generation student attending an undergraduate program, and just to collect data. The second thing is to just maybe there is a way that they will prioritize you or give you some quota. Who knows? But I think it's interesting if you are coming from a first generation low income background, you should take advantage of this and make sure you check the right boxes. This is also interesting. This is from Texas, but also applies to AADSAS. If you have any felonies or misdemeanor, make sure you report that to TMDSAS and then AADSAS, because it's quite important that you do that. And a lot of the time I read on SDN or Student Doctor Network about different arrests or felonies that is mentioned. If you have an arrest or if you have a felonies that are on your application, it does not necessarily mean that you're not gonna get accepted, but you have to do a lot of explanation and telling them like how it happened, and talk about. It just gets more complicated. So try to stay away from it if you can. And if you are arrested and if you are charged, hire a good lawyer. Sometimes the charges can get dropped. So those information, you don't need to disclose. But if you are, if you have some kind of felonies or misdemeanors, I think it's important that you're transparent and providing the right details. So the Texas schools have also a non-traditional applications that you should also look into if you're coming from a non-traditional background. I think it's important that you just write how you are how you are as a non-traditional and what makes you non-traditional. So for example, if you have taken a 3 years gap year, talk about what you have done in the gap year. If you are coming from the army or if you're coming from a completely different profession. I know a lot of people who did, let's say, banking, and then they are bored with the job, and then they're coming to apply to dental school because it's more meaningful. Talk about how that makes you unique and how that allows you to contribute differently to your classroom. Now let's talk about the essays. I think the essays are the most important part in the application process, and people probably provide the most emphasis on the essays. So essays would be the key. We just did a webinar on personal statement review and personal statement for dental schools. You can check it out on this link, and it's also available on our website. So dental school coach website as well as Dental School Coach YouTube channel. So I'm not going to cover more on the personal statement, but just know that for AADSAS you have 4,500 characters, and for TMDSAS you have 5,000 characters. That's the only difference, and it's not a huge difference. It's only 500 characters, maybe like one paragraph or so, but you have more space to write about your Texas application. Now, this is for Texas. This is specifically for TMDSAS, and it's called the Personal Characteristics Essay. Essentially, what it is that how has your background, talent, or skills, how can they contribute to your classmates' experience or your experience in dental school, and how are you going to contribute to that, to the classroom? It's a very straightforward essay. A lot of people actually think too much about it. What essentially they're looking for is, how are you unique, number one, and number two is how are you going to contribute to the classroom? What skills do you bring in? What personality type do you have that will be really beneficial for the students to know? Now, like personal statement, don't just tell them, hey, I'm really compassionate, I'm really empathic, or any other characteristics that you have. Talk about things that you really, things that matter to you, things that are really important to you. For example, I'm giving an extreme example. Let's say you're a cancer survivor, and you can talk about how going through cancer and going through chemo or going through radiation has helped you become more resilient and made you a more patient individual. And in dental school, you are going to exercise that. You're gonna have difficult assignments, difficult personalities to get along with, and you will be able to be resilient throughout the time. And also you can teach your classmates how to be resilient from your story. Sharing them your stories and sharing them your perspective will help them understand and empathize patient situations. The other contributions you can make is that, for example, let's say you are a great tutor. During undergraduate, you've tutored a lot of people, and you can talk about how that tutoring skills can help you during dental schools when you are able to tutor individuals who are coming from a not a robust science background or not a robust academic background. You can help them, especially people that are coming from non-traditional backgrounds. You can help them to understand how to do well in school, how to do how to get better in the classes that they're taking. So TMDSAS or Texas schools also require you to write an optional essay. The optional essay is not truly optional. It's just how they're saying it. Hey, write about something that's not on your application. So I recommend two things. Number one, do write it. It's not just an opportunity for you to showcase who you are as an individual, aside from your personal statement, but also if you have skills, if you have personalities, if you have if you have done things that are so interesting and so creative that they would be like, wow, this is a great applicant, I think you should put this down. Also, this is a good place to put down more information about you coming from a disadvantaged background. So for example, in the optional essay, you can talk about how disadvantaged you have been in your life and what do you plan to do to improve your circumstance by going to dental school. That's really important part of your application. So take that space and write something that's meaningful to you. And if you can't think of anything, we can help you with that as well. So that said, this kind of concludes the majority portion of the AADSAS application and the TMDSAS application. But the way that we help people are in different ways. We have a free 20-minute consult that you can sign up for. That's on our website. But the most popular things that people get is our packages, the AADSAS and the TMDSAS package. So the TMDSAS is some extra work, so there is an extra fee for that. But for what the AADSAS packages cover are basically your free advising on like what to do. Let's say you have a felony or you have some other circumstance that we need to know about. School list creation. A lot of people struggle with which schools they're going to apply to. Personal statement writing, activity summary, description edits. Excuse me. More of you are going to apply to more than more than 10 schools. So a lot of the times they're going to have secondaries and how to write the secondaries. We also do mock interviews to help you to better your interviewing skills and confidence when you get to that phase. And the turnaround time for all this is about 72 hours. So the turnaround time is only applicable for writing or editing process, or editing like your personal statement or secondary statements, etc. So we do have a very quick turnaround for our services. The other thing that's really important here is that, hey, look, I mean, not a lot of people are going to be comfortable going through the application process. It's pretty stressful. What we try to do is take that stress out of you and make sure that you're going through it in a logical and in the correct direction, and then you're not getting overwhelmed by this. So if you sign up for us for a 20-minute phone call for free, we give a 15% discount on these packages. For first-time applicants. So we have a 15% discount on all of these packages. Feel free to talk to us about it, and then we can hook you up with the discount. That said, let us know if you have any question on the website. You can reach us at dentalschoolcoach@gmail.com, and you can also send us a chat on the dentalschoolcoach.com website as well. So look forward to working with you and look forward to stay connected. Thank you.